She's a veteran jury expert and trial consultant, well known for developing a jury profile of the 12 people who acquitted O.J. Simpson in 1995. She picked the jury and worked for the Rittenhouse defense, consulted with the attorneys and gave them her feedback on the witnesses, flew back early from the verdict for safety purposes, and sat with Kyle's mother, Wendy, in the courtroom. Dr. Jo-Ellan Dimitrius joins me for her first interview since this trial ended. Dr. Dimitrius, thank you very much for being here. Your thoughts as you watched all of this play out this afternoon?
Well, I think it isn't lost on anyone that Kyle's release was the same release that we saw when he actually testified. We have a young man that was in the wrong place at the right time. And 12 jurors have spoken that heard all the evidence, that took the time, that weighed the jury instructions, that asked for reviewing some of the video. So I think that there is no one that can fault this jury for taking the time that they did. And also, I think it's important to note that with the polarization of the country over this case and clearly what will happen with this verdict, this jury knew that going into it. As a matter of fact, one of our jurors during voir dire said, I have reservations because I know with whatever verdict is returned, half the country will be upset and the other half will be happy. These jurors, as I think some of us know, were followed by not only members of the media in a van, actually the other day, but they were also followed by a member of the public. And this was before the deliberation process. So, we have 12 citizens who have served their duty, and, everyone can armchair whether or not it was the right verdict. But clearly, they took their time and came back with the not guilty verdicts.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. They did take their time. And as the days ticked by and we reminded viewers that the O.J. Simpson jury came back in 4 hours, and then you're now on day 4, and you look at the list of these counts, I think that obviously, and the judge said this as well, it was a very thoughtful jury that sat for this trial and understood, as you point out, the burden that was on them with regard to the weight of this case and the way that and all that it carried with it outside of what they needed to decide. There was a lot of discussion about the alternates being picked out of that out of the till to be discarded or to have to stand by and not be part of the final process of decision making in this. And Mark Richards, the defense attorney, just said, Kyle pulled them out, but we lost a couple of jurors, I think 3 of jurors that he really wanted very much to be in it based on the pre-trial interviews and discussions with them. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, number one, I do feel badly for those 6 individuals, because how hard would it be to have sat through the entire case and then to learn as you're going into deliberation process that you're not going to be one of the 12. And on top of that, knowing that every day you have to come back to the courthouse, you can't be with the 12 deliberating. You can't even talk about the case with the other 5 jurors, 5 alternates that you're there with. So my hat goes off to them for going through that process. It is very unusual for a judge to have a system similar to what Judge Schrader did here, where you have a till that's operated and you actually have the defendant pick numbers out. I mean, it's akin to kind of Russian roulette when you think about it. That said, again, while I think we did lose some folks that were potentially positive for us, the 12 that were ultimately served their duty and deliberated these 4 days, Again, we can't fault them, but we can, in fact, thank all of the jurors, all 20 of them. I know 2 of them were excused during the trial, but we can thank them for going through this process. I think it's also unusual, too, to note that this jury at no time was ever sequestered. They weren't sequestered during the testimony, and they weren't sequestered during the actual deliberations. Again, my experience is that's pretty unusual. And in his wisdom, the judge decided not to sequester these folks. Fortunately, for us, it turned out as a positive component. So I think all in all, not only were the jurors very analytical in their deliberation process, but I think the judge, for all of the faults that were mentioned about him, I think he was a very fair judge overall.
Dr. Jo-Ellan Dimitrius, thank you very much. Worked with the defense during the trial selection process and also on very high-profile cases, the OJ case as well. Before I let you go, obviously these people are going to be approached. You were part of the process to select them. What would you say to them in terms of how to respond when people want them to discuss this case?
I'd simply tell them to share their thought process going through it. We don't know what happened during deliberations, but should they decide to talk, and I certainly understand if none of them do decide to talk, that they share that process. I think that the country, the world needs to know that what the deliberative process is all about. And my best guess is they would be discussing the fact that maybe some of them didn't necessarily come to the conclusion of an acquittal on all 5 counts at the very beginning. That's what deliberations are all about, is the sharing of your opinion and your mindset to the other 11 jurors in the hopes that you will come up with that cumulative verdict, which obviously these folks did. So again, I understand if they don't want to talk, certainly because this case is polarizing.
Jo-Ellan, thank you very much. Great to have you with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Martha.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.